Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. How much control does one nation's grip on vital resources truly afford them in the long run? And what happens when that control is leveraged, as a weapon in the complex geopolitical landscape? Today, we're taking a critical look at China's strategic actions concerning rare earth elements. A recent piece in The Economist makes a pretty bold claim that China's use of these minerals as a strategic weapon will ultimately backfire. We're going to unpack that argument, examine where it holds true, and really explore the intricate layers that make this story far more complex, more nuanced than just a simple headline suggests. Our goal is to move beyond a basic summary, offering you a thoughtful and critical interpretation of the issues at play. We're drawing from various sources to give you a truly well-rounded understanding of this critical global dynamic. So let's cast our minds back. Think April 2025. Panic was sort of in the air. China had just enacted new, tighter controls on rare earth exports, and the global industrial world really felt a jolt. For many people, these rare earths might sound a bit obscure, but they're absolutely foundational to modern technology. Really vital. We're talking about the elements essential for making those powerful lightweight magnets. They drive everything from the motor in your electric vacuum cleaner, say, to the high-performance engines in electric vehicles. They're also vital components in your smartphone, in wind turbines, even in advanced military hardware like fighter jets. Reports at the time painted a vivid picture. You had car makers facing production cuts, the entire industry spiraling into what was described as panic mode. Ursula von der Leyen, head of the European Commission, was notably vocal. Very strong condemnations against China's dominance, and what she explicitly termed blackmail. And initially, it seemed to many observers, including The Economist, that this aggressive use of rare earths as leverage was indeed yielding results. It appeared China was getting exactly what it wanted. Consider the visible concessions that followed from Washington. After the initial shock subsided and, some rare earth flows resumed, the U.S. president notably lifted controls on the sale of certain advanced NVIDIA H20 chips. That was in July and August. Then, on August 11th, America and China extended their tariff truce. We even saw Mrs. von der Leyen make a trip to Beijing in July, reportedly seeking some form of relief from the restrictions. All of this certainly gave the impression that, in the short term, China's strategy was quite effective.
It's fascinating, really, to see how China's approach to economic leverage has matured. It really has. This isn't their first foray into this kind of strategic control, not at all. We saw a brief but impactful blockage of rare earth exports to Japan back in 2010. That was after a political dispute. Then in 2020, they imposed duties on Australian goods like wine and beef. But what they've deployed now is far more sophisticated. Much more. Since December 1st, 2024, China has implemented a unified dual-use export control regime.
Dual-use meaning civilian and military applications.
Exactly. Goods or technologies with both. This system covers a consolidated list of around 700 items. And then specifically on April 4th, 2025, they added targeted curbs on medium and heavy rare earths. That was through what's known as MOFCOM and Customs Announcement 18, MOFCOM being China's Ministry of Commerce.
Okay.
Now, this isn't just some broad ban. It's a meticulously designed system. Licensing now involves really granular, precise scrutiny of the end use and the end user.
Right. Who's actually getting the stuff and what for?
Precisely. So while general rare earth exports might have picked up again in recent weeks, sales to critical sectors, particularly Western arms makers, are still effectively choked off.
Yeah.
It's very targeted, very strategic control, not a blunt instrument.
That level of precision is, quite chilling. What's the ultimate game plan for Beijing with these refined tactics? What are they really trying to achieve here?
China's leadership seems to have a clear two-pronged objective. One aim is to truly indigenize supply chains, basically bring essential supply chains fully within their own borders and control to ensure they aren't at the mercy of others for critical inputs.
Which probably gained urgency after the U.S. chip ban.
Absolutely. That demonstrated their vulnerability, so this goal got accelerated. They want self-sufficiency, a robust internal ecosystem. The second aim is to leverage this control as a source of influence on the global stage. As early as April 2020, Chinese officials were signaling that global dependency on their supply chains could act as a powerful deterrent. A deterrent against any foreign power that might, artificially cut off supply to China. It's a very direct message.
Don't cut us off or we can cut you off.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. If you threaten our access, we can certainly threaten yours.
That really sets the stage perfectly for The Economist's core backfire thesis, doesn't it? The article argues that these export controls, despite any immediate tactical wins, will ultimately have significant unintended consequences. Because, as history tends to show, companies and entrepreneurs will inevitably innovate. They'll find ways around the shortage. The central logic here is that China's immense dominance in rare earths isn't primarily because they have exclusive access to deposits or some super secret tech and refining. Instead, it stems from sheer efficiency and scale.
Right.
Which means the more China uses rare earths as a weapon, the more it basically incentivizes the rest of the world to develop alternatives. And that, paradoxically, ends up weakening its future leverage.
Exactly. It's a classic market reaction to artificial constraints, often leads to innovation that undermines the control itself. And to underscore that point, it's vital to remember that despite their name, rare earths are actually relatively abundant globally.
That always surprises people.
It does. You might be surprised to learn that less than half of all known reserves are even found in China. Now, processing them is undeniably a painstaking and polluting business, yes, but crucially, it's not as technologically complex as advanced chip making. It doesn't need decades of foundational research or those multi-billion-dollar fabs.
Right.
In fact, it's a piece of history often overlooked. America was actually the biggest supplier of these very minerals until the 1980s. China's current dominance largely emerged because they were willing to invest heavily in the infrastructure and, frankly, accept the environmental consequences of processing. That allowed for incredibly cheap production at gargantuan scale, cementing their position. But here's a crucial insight. What's fascinating here is that while The Economist makes a compelling case for this backfire effect, it's mostly a long-run claim. That's really important. The reality of building new capacity outside of China, whether it's new mines or refining facilities, it operates on what we call multi-year clocks.
Yeah, flipping a switch.
Definitely not. These aren't quick projects. The International Energy Agency's 2025 outlook does project that global rare earth supply can meet demand, but that's a significant if. It's entirely contingent on all the new mines and refiners that have been announced actually hitting their production schedules.
And big projects often slip schedule.
Exactly. Slippage remains a very real risk. On top of that, and this is maybe counterintuitive, China's policies can actually draw production into China. Some firms might strategically relocate parts of their operations there just to gain more reliable access to inputs.
Which sort of undermines the backfire idea, locally at least.
Right. It softens the backfire effect within China's own borders by strengthening their internal supply chains.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more then. Considering that long-run view, does China truly have absolute dominance, or is that part of the story maybe incomplete? It sounds like there could be a way around it eventually.
You're absolutely right to dig into that. China's dominance isn't absolute, no, but it's certainly sticky where it matters most. Japan offers a perfect illustration here. After their rare earth spat with China back in 2010, Japan worked really aggressively to reduce its dependence on Chinese rare earths.
And they had some success.
They did. They managed to cut it from around 90% down to approximately 60%. They did this through a combination of things: building strategic stockpiles, securing long-term offtake agreements from overseas suppliers, and significantly improving efficiency in their own industrial processes. But despite this impressive overall reduction, there's a persistent truth. Permanent magnet motors, which need specific rare earths like dysprosium and terbium,
Right, the heavy ones.
those still overwhelmingly dominate the electric vehicle market. We're talking about a 77% market share over the past decade. This means that even as overall dependence falls, those crucial elements for these particular magnets still face bottlenecks. The reliance on China for those specific inputs endures.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting in the long-term view. The article points to what seems like a significant development: 22 new mines by 2030 outside of China. Now, that sounds like a massive step towards breaking China's grip. Is that enough? Is it enough to truly shift the global balance of power?
Well, those 22 new mines by 2030 are certainly encouraging. And yes, we are seeing mining pipelines swelling globally. The USGS and IEA data back that up. But the real bottleneck is processing and magnets. That's the key. Think about where the value capture hinges. It's in the complex stages: separation, metal making, and then the magnet plants themselves.
Where China's share is highest.
Exactly, over 90% of global magnet production. So while more raw material being pulled out of the ground is a great start, absolutely, Western strategies that stop at mining won't meaningfully bend China's leverage. Not really. The raw ore needs to be painstakingly processed into refined rare earths, and then those refined elements need to be engineered into functional, high-performance magnets. That's the intricate part of the value chain where China still holds immense power. That's where the choke points truly lie. And let me add another critical nuance to this picture. Innovation and substitution are absolutely proven, but they're not universal solutions. Not yet, anyway. Well, it's true that companies like BMW and Renault are already successfully selling rare earth-free electrically excited motors in some of their EVs. And innovative European and Japanese suppliers, like ZF, are actively pushing the boundaries of magnet-free motor designs.
So alternatives are coming online.
They are, and these innovations certainly help, especially for specific models, certain applications, or particular duty cycles, no question. However, an industry-wide replacement of NdFeB magnets, those are the widely used neodymium iron boron magnets.
Right, the workhorse magnets.
Yes, replacing those completely is unlikely in the near term without facing significant efficiency trade-offs in many performance scenarios. So while alternatives exist and are developing rapidly, they don't yet offer a one-size-fits-all solution across the entire spectrum of performance needs for all electric motors. It's a complex balance, technological innovation versus practical application across diverse industries.
Okay, so the situation is clearly dynamic, not static at all. Given all these moving parts, what has tangibly changed since April, when this whole rare earth panic really kicked off?
Well, a few critical things have definitely shifted since then. First, there's been a noticeable tightening of targeted export enforcement by China. We've seen it. There have been recent public warnings against stockpiling rare earth magnets and elements, coupled with a discernible slowdown in licensing approvals.
So not just noise, real administrative changes.
Exactly. These aren't just administrative quirks. They signal stricter administration is in play, even if the headline export flows might appear to have generally resumed. The practical effect of this, it's leading to longer lead times and selective denials for sensitive end users. It's less about a complete stop and more about a strategic slowdown, maybe redirection of material. Secondly, what was widely hailed as a truce.
The U.S.-China tariff truce extension.
Right. It's perhaps better understood as a policy truce, but certainly not policy peace. The 90-day tariff extension definitely lowers the immediate escalation risk. That's helpful. But crucially, both sides are very much keeping strategic levers, China with its control over minerals and magnets, America with its sophisticated chip and tooling controls.
So nobody's giving up their leverage.
Not at all. The clear message for global firms, therefore, is to plan for episodic relief, but structural volatility. Don't expect a smooth, uninterrupted flow. Be prepared for ongoing strategic tensions. It's the new normal, perhaps. But on a more positive note, we are seeing CapEx, or capital expenditure, accelerating outside China, and so is recycling. That's a big one.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. There are concrete examples emerging. Apple and MP Materials are jointly investing, I think it's $500 million, in magnet production and recycling capabilities. The Pentagon is providing direct support to MP Materials as well. We're also seeing promising UK, EU, and US scale-ups, companies like Hypermag and Ionic emerging, really pushing the envelope in recycling technologies.
So these efforts are starting to scale up.
They are. Now, look, these initiatives won't erase China's lead soon, let's be realistic, but they are incredibly significant because they credibly have shock exposure over time.
Have shock exposure. That's a powerful idea.
It is. It means that while China remains a dominant player, the world is progressively building greater resilience against sudden disruptions, more breathing room.
That's a powerful thought indeed. So with all this in mind, the long-term trends, the current shifts, the bottlenecks, what does this all mean for what the world should actually do? How do we build real, lasting resilience in this critical sector? How can we move forward constructively?
Yeah, that's the key question. From a positive neutral lens, there are several constructive takeaways, I think. First, the strategy needs to be diversify, but prioritize downstream steps.
Meaning beyond just mining.
Exactly. While stockpiles and new mines are certainly helpful, the truly decisive capacity lies in those stages of separation, metal making, and magnet production. The good news is that current policies, particularly in the US, EU, and Australia, seem to be increasingly starting to target the right stage. They're focusing on these higher value, more complex parts of the supply chain.
Okay, so focus downstream. What else?
Second, it's wise to lean on substitution where it's technically sound. Magnet-free motors, for example, can capably cover meaningful slices of the market. Think fleet cars, certain SUVs, buses. This approach helps in trimming dysprosium and terbium exposure without heavy performance penalties.
They're not for everything.
Right. For ultra-high power or extremely space-constrained applications, traditional magnets will likely remain necessary. But substitution offers a viable, less resource-intensive path for many other uses. It reduces the pressure. Third, we absolutely need to make recycling bankable, really invest in it. Innovative technologies like HPMS-style magnet recycling, that's hydrogen processing of magnet scrap, they're now hitting commercial pilots in places like the UK, Germany, the US.
And that avoids new mining.
Correct. This technology has the potential to supply high-grade NdFe, that crucial magnet material, without the need for new mining or the associated environmental externalities. It's valuable for both resilience and ESG goals, environmental, social, governance, a real win-win. And finally, number 4, it's important to keep permit reforms pragmatic.
Meaning don't just rush things.
Well, speeding up approvals for new mining and processing facilities is generally helpful, yes. But the International Energy Agency stresses execution risk above all else. What truly lowers schedule risk more than headline fast permits that can get litigated is securing a durable social license for these projects.
Getting community buy-in.
Exactly. Community support and careful attention to environmental considerations, handled up front, can prevent costly and time-consuming delays down the line. Pragmatism over just speed.
So, to echo the economist's core conclusion that it seems the coercive use of minerals really nudges the world to innovate and diversify.
That's precisely it. The nearer-term reality for rare earths is dual, really. On one hand, China retains outsized influence via its refining and magnet production capabilities. That's undeniable right now. But B, simultaneously, diversification and substitution efforts are finally scaling. We see real progress in recycling, the increasing viability of magnet-free motors, new refining hubs popping up. And if you frame this positively, this isn't really a zero-sum victory for any single nation. It's more like a global resilience upgrade.
Interesting way to put it.
Yeah, China's efficient incumbency remains central today, but other nations are proactively building credible optionality for tomorrow, and that ultimately creates a more robust, more distributed global supply chain for everyone.
It's a powerful idea, that closing thought from The Economist. The more China uses its rare earths policy, therefore, the weaker it will become. Time and again, enterprise and ingenuity have prevailed over attempts to control the flow of goods. China itself learned that lesson, didn't it, as its tech firms responded to America's export controls on chips. It may have to learn it again. So what does this suggest for other vital industries or strategic resources where control is highly concentrated? How quickly can enterprise and ingenuity truly shift global power dynamics when faced with such strategic leverage? Something to mull over. Thanks for listening. Follow us to stay updated with the latest insights on The Economist every day, and don't forget to like, comment, and share.